welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am Steve Harper, and with me is my favorite co-host of all time. Well, I can't say that because, I have other co-hosts. I should not say that. But one of my favorite co-hosts for sure, Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm so happy to be doing this. It's the high point of my week. So there.
Well, yeah, because you're seeing me put my foot in my mouth and getting in trouble with other people, right?
That's always fun.
That's always fun. No, this is a highlight of my day as well, always, when we get an opportunity to have these conversations. And so, let's jump into it. What's our topic for today?
So, I was thinking a lot about this. Without commitment, you'll never start. Without consistency, you'll never finish.
Oh.
I've been watching this happen. We talked in previous episodes about the core values index and how I assess how people are hardwired. And It's such a riot because now my clients are referring to how they're hardwired as an understanding or a rationale as to why they don't finish things.
Right.
Because they're hardwired as innovators, as those who are always in ideation mode, and they dive into the latest sexy idea. They're really enthused to do it, but then something else comes along and that commitment's not there to finish that first thing, and they go on to the second thing.
Yeah.
And so it really came down to, what is your commitment to finish? Never mind, commitment to the idea, but commitment to the execution of that idea once you have decided it's in your best interest. Because if you're not consistent with that, you're never going to finish anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business owners, right? We have a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of things that we would like to do, and we might find ourselves starting. I'm guilty of it for sure. The new shiny object, but you don't actually ask yourself that next question. Okay, if I'm going to commit to do this, do I have the consistency to show up to see it all the way through, or is this going to be something that falls by the wayside in a month or two when I don't get the momentum I want, or I don't get the feedback I need, or my team's not as excited as I am to do it? What are the things that could potentially derail me and derail that commitment? I think is a really good thing to start with in terms of evaluating whether that's the right idea or the right thing to do, and justifying the commitment that you're putting forth. But then looking beyond the initial excitement, because everybody's excited at the very beginning, just because it's new and it's fresh and you've got enthusiasm, but then you sleep on it a couple of times, or, you got to actually start digging the hole to make it happen. And that's where, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. I didn't know it was going to be this frustrating. And that's where the commitment starts to falter.
That's it. So how do you stay consistent with honoring that commitment? It's the consistency is really key, right? Are you consistent with going on to the next shiny new object? Or are you consistent with following things through? And maybe how does it tie into a previous discussion that we had about intentions equal results? If we intend to honor our commitments, we will get those results, even if it means that we need to not get distracted and just focus and get it done, and look at how we could celebrate that accomplishment, later on.
Well, I have a personal example I can throw out there, and it's really relevant because we actually just did a way to ensure that we have the commitment and the consistency in a new strategy or approach that we're taking. So as our audience may or may not know, I also own a software company that is different than what I do for the Ripple Effect. And we have outsource partners that we utilize for our software development and support. And we made a decision. We've actually gone through a couple of teams. So we hired a fractional CTO to come in and sort of play the adult in the room, right? So to come in and guide and direct what we should be doing, what we should be focusing on, where our investments should be aligned, and to evaluate the teams that we were paying big money to help further our progress. And we have run into now in 2 incidents where the development teams or partners that we've utilized haven't delivered what we expected them to deliver. And so our fractional CTO, came in and said, we got to make a change. We got to do something different. After the first one, it was okay, right? Because it was kind of the writing was on the wall. On the second one, it was kind of like, well, how much of what we did in a lack of leadership or project management or really helping them be successful, how much of this is on us? And so when the recommendation by our fractional CTO to get rid of these guys and have a third team come in, this is a big hubbub, right, for us. There's a lot of cost.
Sure.
There's a lot of time invested. I started to ask some second level questions because I'm not a technical guy, right? But I am a people guy. And so I asked the outgoing team, what could we have done better to make you successful? And sorry, you guys are getting canned, but at the end of the day, decisions have to be made, and this is where we're going. And at the end of the day, what could we have done differently? And they gave me some really good feedback. And there was just a lot of things that they were being asked to do and a lot of expectations that were being put forward that just weren't reasonable. So
Mm-hmm.
as we were moving towards this third partner, if you will, I said, we need a project charter. We're bringing them in to do something specific, but we need to show our commitment to the idea, and we
Right.
need to have it spelled out as to what their executable expectations are. And then
Right.
we need to be consistently showing up to hold ourselves accountable and to hold the other team accountable. And this project charter needed to be there day one. And the minute that we started talking through that, it was obvious to me that, our fractional CTO really hadn't done this before, really didn't see it from the perspective I had, but really bought into and understood why I was asking for it. Because from my high level, yeah, I say like high level, like I'm super important. It's just really, it's a small level, but it's up. And I come back and I can say, okay, this gives me, yeah, hockey puck. This gives me some ways that I can manage how he's doing and how the team is doing from a global kind of perspective. And what it did was it gave our new development resource the marching orders day one. And that materialized in already just a couple of weeks in, seeing huge shifts in not only what this new team is putting out, but actually the team that we still have is actually shifted their attitude and their approach, and they're stepping up their game. And so it had this huge culture impact. And so this project, sort of charter that I called it, was really a commitment to say, look, if I'm going to drop the money that we are investing, and it's big money, towards doing this again, the third time is going to work. It has to work, and here's how we're going to make sure it works. And I think that's important. So and the reason I share it in such detail with you is that I think that you could actually create a project charter or a charter for anything that you're going to make in this, any type of big decision or any type of commitment that you're going to make. What is it that I'm committing to do? And what do I need to do from a consistency perspective every single day or every week or every quarter to show up and make sure that I follow through and get that done? It holds you accountable. Some people might call it a vision statement. They might call it a mission statement. Some will call it a business plan. But really, it just comes down to the charter. Here's the idea, or here's what we're doing, and here's what we're going to do in order to see it all the way through. And I think that actually does have, the ability for you to look at what happens when things are being successful and going forward in the way we hope it is, and what happens if things become more difficult or more challenging. How will we deal with that? And it does put you in the shoes of a future version of yourself that says, oh, maybe this was a lot harder than I expected, but how am I going to deal with that when those things come up? It at least lets you start to think about those scenarios early just to test, well, how committed are we to what we're going to do?
Right. And the project charter is always a good idea because it's a roadmap,
Yeah.
right? And it's easier to follow a roadmap than ambiguity. There's no question. Then we go into the part of the psyche and the personality that speaks to consistency,
Yeah.
commitment, and consistency. Because you could have the greatest project charter in the world. If you're not committed to following it, what brings you back on track? What
Mm-hmm.
is the reality check that says you made a commitment? If you don't honor it, that speaks to your word, your integrity, the trust in the fact that when you take something on that you're following it through. What is it that you could do to cement that commitment. It's another conversation, when you say this is a lot harder than I thought it was. We need to make accommodation to figure it out. That doesn't mean still not going to complete it because we said it was a good idea,
Right.
and it will give us some positive, benefit. The question is, how do you navigate the side of you that gives up, or the side of you that gets distracted, and you're not even aware sometimes that you're giving up, that because you're so focused on this new thing or this new approach, or maybe we need to park that because here's another way of doing it that's so exciting. Well, what if you did that for this new exciting thing and the next new exciting thing? The bottom line is, what are you getting done? And how does that go for a sustainable business, relationship, whatever it is, when you give up on one thing? And before I pass it back to you, what just occurred to me is, how often does that happen in relationships as well?
Oh yeah.
I remember like in school when we were kids, watching, the most popular, cliquey groups of kids, and then somebody new comes in from outside and starts going to the school, and that person is like exciting because of who they are and what their background is, and all of a
Or
sudden,
they're just new.
or just new, and the person that was the popular person is no longer that, top of the pedestal. Not because they changed, it's because they've been replaced by
Yeah.
something else. And
Yep.
that continues in our lifetime, right? We're dating somebody, and then somebody else comes along. Ooh, I like that person better, and we just don't honor. It's not to say we should stay with people who are not meant to be with. It's what is the commitment, and how do you honor the commitment, even when you're severing ties,
Yeah.
and do it in a respectful way, with forethought.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of research on relationships lately, and specifically interpersonal relationships, romantic, close personal friendships, what it takes for you to keep that fire burning, if you will, right? And, momentum carrying forward. And I think you make a very excellent point as it relates to this topic, because that charter that you sort of map out for yourself, or you gain mutual understanding of what this is, there's some real strength and value in being able to have that conversation. There's a YouTuber I follow, and I don't want to put his name necessarily out there because I follow it just on a personal level. But one of the things that he has done when he recognized that his marriage was kind of headed down a very rough patch, um, the common perception today is it's so easy to just, end it and go somewhere else. And most people like to, oh, well, you just gave me the excuse to go cheat on you, or to, call my divorce attorney or whatever. And one of the things that he saw was how it was affecting him in all the areas of his life. And what was really telling was that he knew that when things were off at home, things were off at work, things were off in other capacities of his
Oh
life.
yeah.
And that was super challenging. And he said, I had no idea whether it was affecting my partner in the same way. I could assume, but I wouldn't know. And so their commitment was to sit down and say, well, hey, when we're fighting, or we're not getting along, or we don't seem to be able to be in the same room together, these things happen, ebbs and flows in relationships. Is it throwing your work off? Is it throwing your life out of balance as well? And the partner said yes, absolutely. And it's like the worst feeling in the world. So what do we do to consistently show up to try and avoid that? Some pitfalls in relationships are inevitable. But if we get together and figure out how to get through them together, and we create a common set of language, common approach to solving these things, when I'm really feeling it, but you're not feeling it, how do we figure out how to at least get where we can meet in the middle? And what I thought was really amazing is they have every 2 weeks, they have a check-in. And they have a check-in which consists of 20 minutes sitting down to say, what's going well? What could we do better? What have I done that annoyed you? And it's a 20-minute, confined time and space to share anything and everything. And the rule is you don't take it out of there, right? You learn from it, but you don't hold resentments because of what gets shared. And I guess they started this about 2 or 3 years ago. And he said, I've never felt more connected and more, in love and in this relationship and committed to the long-term future of it than when we start doing it, because it actually does require that we come to the table with our grievances and, a recognition of some of our immaturities and challenges that we have. And that is, in essence, the charter. How do we carry this forward? How do we make this relationship better? I just find that, if I personally, I find it fascinating. And I think something that we don't talk nearly enough about or actually do, but what if we did? And how different might our own lives be? How much different might our relationships be? And ideally, why the topic came up, how different might we operate in the business realm that we find ourselves in?
Exactly. It's like anything else. I just find it curious that people will spend so much time, energy, and effort planning their two week vacation, much more so than the 50 weeks that they have to live outside of that vacation or whatever timing there is. And they
Yeah.
don't put the same forethought, commitment, and consistency into that. It's mind boggling. And, where are you? Like, I guess one of the reflective questions that I would invite you to ask yourself is, in the scheme of things, am I honoring my commitment to seeing something through? Am I honoring my consistency in my approach? Because consistency is huge in as such that if you're consistent, people will trust that they know what your response is going to be. Even
Yeah.
if you're angry, they
Sure.
know what your limits are. They know what your triggers are. All of that. If you're inconsistent, you keep people guessing,
Yeah.
and that implicates trust,
Yeah.
right? So, what is the overall commitment? Is it realistic? Is the next question.
Yeah.
If it's realistic and you've made the commitment and you know that it's working towards a desired end result, what is going to keep you on track? In addition to your charter, your roadmap, whatever you want to call it, your plan, what is going to keep you on track with that plan? And how are you going to do a check-in with yourself on a regular basis? I love what you said about, that person doing the regular check-ins. How often do you check in with yourself and ask yourself, am I honoring my commitments? Am I consistent in my approach? Do I keep people on their toes, which is not comfortable for them because they don't know when I'll blow up or not, or when I'll disconnect or not?
Yeah.
So how do you check in with yourself, and do you check in with yourself? I think is an important question for our listeners to reflect on.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent point and suggestion. I think, where's your charter with yourself and how you want to be, and, the kind of individual that you want to represent yourself as, both in your professional world and your life. I just think there's some real strength in really sitting down and identifying that. So I
Yeah,
think that's a really good point.
this is
So,
good.
in full disclosure, because I did not honor our charter here. We started to record today because we had some audio challenges, and we may still have a little bit of. We'll talk about that when we stop recording. But I forgot to put up our overlay for the video.
Yeah, I noticed.
See, I should have mentioned it earlier, but I realized it halfway in, and so
I noticed.
I
Yeah.
threw it up just so everybody could see it here as we finish up. But this is, as all of these conversations are, they're fascinating. Get, if you would, Donna, tell folks how they can give us their 3 cents, as you like to say, about this topic, and share any other ideas or thoughts they might like us to cover in a future episode.
Join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper, and join the conversation. Let us know what you think, or if there's some ideas you want us to discuss. We'd love to hear from you. Obviously, our YouTube podcast, sign up for that so you get notified. We release them once a week, and we would love you to be part of our community. It's the best way to get to join into the conversation.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we are so grateful that you guys tune in every week for Inquiring Minds. We are hearing some great feedback from those of you that are listening or catching this on YouTube or Facebook, and we're so grateful for your attention to what we talk about each week. And so we definitely encourage you to get engaged and involved with us. And we'll be back again next week with another episode of Inquiring Minds. But until then, Donna, take care.
You too. Have a good one.